Hello, welcome to my channel where I bring you guys lampworking tutorials and demonstrations. This week I'm going to show you how to make a wigwag pendant similar to the one I'm holding here. So I do hope you find this tutorial useful. If you do, don't forget to give me a like and subscribe. Let's jump in. To create this wigwag, I used my graphite pad, graphite paddle, an assortment of tweezers, and my reamer. I also used my marble molds, but I forgot to show them here. As far as glass, I'm going to be using a 12mm rod of clear glass, a rod of caramel, and a rod of unobtainium. So getting started here, firing up my torch, you do want just a nice large neutral bushy flame, and I am using both my inner and outer flame starting the process here. So first I'm going in with that 12mm rod, and as you can see I did speed up this footage just to keep things moving along, but I'm just introducing that to the heat and heating up the first couple inches. So now I'm introducing my caramel color to the flame, and I'm basically just going to go ahead and stripe that down my clear glass rod, and I'm leaving space in between the stripes of caramel so I can go back in and add stripes of unobtainium in between. I ended up doing 4 stripes of caramel total, but you could adjust that depending on how thick or thin your lining is turning out. So here you can kind of get an idea of what that looks like with the gaps in between for the unobtainium. So next I'm going to start introducing that rod of unobtainium into the flame, and I'm doing the exact same thing and just laying down lines of unobtainium in those gaps I left between the lines of caramel. And always remember when you're striping color that you want to heat both the color you're applying and the rod that you're applying it to make sure that you end up with a nice even fuse. So I'm just going around here and I am making little adjustments with my tweezers just to make sure there aren't any gaps or holes in my color and that the entire clear glass rod is completely covered. Any little lines of clear glass peeking through will show on the final piece, so I just want to make sure that I have complete coverage so I don't end up with any kind of lines on my finished piece. So just applying my final stripe here, making some last adjustments, and now you can kind of see how I have just alternating stripes of caramel and unobtainium covering the whole piece. So now this is going straight back into the flame, and basically at this point I'm working on kind of melting that in, making sure there's no little clear glass gaps on the top there, and just melting that top portion until it's nice and round and even. And now I've attached a handle on the end so I can go ahead and start applying more heat down the rest of the piece and just melting in all of that color while also pulling it out. Basically, I want to make sure it's all melted in and nice and smooth, and also just pull it into kind of a long, skinny piece. You can see what that looks like here. So now that I have all of my color applied and I have it pulled out into a long skinny tube, I'm going to go ahead and move down just to my inner flame. And basically what I'm doing here is applying heat to one small section and turning that section in one direction, and then moving on to the section next to it and turning that section in the opposite direction. You do want to give each section a little bit of time to cool before you apply heat to the section next to it, just to make sure that you're kind of maintaining those wigs and those wags. So you can see the pattern kind of starting to come into shape here. So I'm going to go ahead and continue this process all the way down the piece until I get all the way to where my handle is attached there. And now I'm happy with how that looks, so I'm going to go ahead and bump back up to my outer flame. And now I'm basically just applying heat and working to melt this entire thing back in on itself. So I'm just applying heat and just gradually applying pressure very gently from both sides. And you can see I'm kind of switching which direction I'm turning the piece in, just to make sure that I'm maintaining those turns and not losing my design as I melt it together. So once I have everything kind of smushed back together into a decently small little ball here, I'm going to go ahead and just cut my handle off of the front. And now I'm basically just applying heat and continuing to melt the piece into itself and beginning to kind of shape it into a nice round looking pendant shape. And just about here, I wanted to make a little bit of an adjustment to my spiral on the front. So I just pulled a little bit more glass off and gave it a little extra turn. And I'm continuing to just kind of melt that in. This is where I realized that my marble molds would be helpful and grabbed that from off screen. So I pulled that in and I'm just using it to help shape the front of the pendant and hurry the process up a little bit and help me round things out. And I wanted to make this piece a little bit more flat on the front, so I did end up grabbing my other larger marble mold here. And again, I'm just using that to help achieve the shape that I'm looking for, just pushing that straight down. And you can kind of see that wigwag coming into form here now. So now that I'm pretty happy with the shape, I'm going to go ahead and reattach a handle to the very front of this piece. You do want to be careful when attaching this that you're not fusing it because you don't want to leave any clear glass on the front there because that will mess with the design. So basically I'm just attaching my handle and then going in and applying heat to the rod that's still connected on the back and cutting that right off. So there is some excess glass here, so I'm just going in with my tweezers to go ahead and pull off all of the extra glass and remove that. So once I'm happy with the amount of glass I have on the back here, I'm going to go ahead and just start kind of melting that in. I did decide here that I wanted to remove just a little bit more glass, so I go back in with my tweezers one more time, as you can see here. And now I'm just going to go ahead and apply heat directly to the back of the piece and use my graphite pad to start flattening that out until I have it nice and flush and straight. And once I'm happy with how the back looks, you can kind of see I have a nice round looking pendant here now. I'm going to go ahead and heat up another punny and attach that right to the middle of the back of the piece. So here I am just cleaning that punny up a little bit before I attach it and just fusing that right on. And then I did just bump my punny off of the front. And now I'm just applying heat to the front to polish off the punny mark that was left behind there, using the marble mold to maintain my shape of the front of the pendant while also using my graphite paddle to make sure that I'm keeping the back of the pendant flat. So once I'm happy with my shape here, I'll go back in with my other clear glass handle. You can kind of see how things are starting to turn out here. But basically I'm just deciding which way I want the pendant to face, which direction I want to be up. And now I'm going to go in with another handle and put it on the bottom, what will become the bottom of the piece. So I'm attaching that and knocking off my other punny off screen here and just making sure I have everything nice and straight. And then I'm hitting the back of the pendant with the flame just to polish that spot where my previous handle was attached and using my graphite paddle to make sure everything stays nice and flat and is looking good. And now I'm going to go in with my unobtainium. I'm beginning to work on adding my loop. I'm not going to go too in depth on the loop making process here. I do have another video that goes really in depth on how to make a pendant loop. So if you need that part of the tutorial, go ahead and check out my other video there. But here you can see I've added the unobtainium dollop that I'm going to use for my loop, and I'm just pulling that out with my tweezers and kind of applying a little bit of heat and making adjustments and forming my loop here and just going back and forth between applying heat in the flame and shaping it with my tweezers and eventually with my graphite reamer as well. And the loop is a lot of just going back and forth, making sure that you have everything completely fused and everything looks nice and even. So here I'm satisfied with how my loop looks. So I'm going to go ahead and knock that punny off the bottom, polish off that final punny mark, and this baby's going right into my kiln. It is important with these to make sure you don't leave too much clear glass where any of your pennies are attached, because they will interfere with the design. So you can kind of see what that's looking like here right before it goes into the kiln. And I will show you the final product here as well. So here is how that pendant turned out. I hope this was helpful. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you'd like to see more of my work, check out my Etsy store, which I will link in the description below.